How's it going, guys? Thought here with Thunder Gaming League, bringing you Nasus tutorial. Now, this tutorial will be very in-depth for those of you who are just starting the game, or those of you who just want to get better with Nasus. I'll be talking about different ways to build Nasus, how to play Nasus, how to counter with him, and also his counters. Let's get to it. Starting off with runes, you'll see off to the right here, I have 12 magic resist, 13 armor, 15 armor pen, and 6% lifesteal bonus. Now for glyphs, I go flat magic resist, so I have that survivability, and that off chance an AP goes top or mid ganks me. So it's always good to have for those what if situations. You can put anything you want in these glyphs, such as cooldown reduction and such, but that's just what I like to have. Moving on, I get flat armor seals because top is usually 90% of the time is AD heavy, such as Wukong, Riven, Garen, etc. So armor will always be good to have so you can take more harass, so you can stay in that lane and farm your Q up. Taking these seals in my opinion is mandatory, since as Nasus you will always go top. For marks, I grab armor penetration due to the fact you will deal more damage in the long run than you would with flat damage marks. Plus, your opponent might build armor to counter your damage, making this an invaluable rune. Last but not least, we have Quints. Now, Nasus starts off at level 1 with a natural 14% lifesteal bonus, so adding the 6% onto that with the Quints give you a remarkable lane sustainability. 20% with the extra 3% you'll get from the Masteries, making a total 23% lifesteal at level 1, will nullify almost any small poking damage you will take in lane. I'll also go on over later why I will always choose these over armor pen Quints. Now moving on to Masteries. I personally go 15-15-0. Some people will disagree with this, but I find that it works out, for me at least, fairly well. The 15 in offense will give me the damage output I need to make presence in lane, plus adding the extra 3% to add to the passive. Now, the 15 in defense allows me to take less damage from minions, so I can hold them in some cases so they don't attack the tower. I also take 3 points in invasion, because champions such as Riven, Garen, Darius, etc. all have AoE attacks, and with those 3 being good counters to Nasus, it's always good to have that more survivability. Lastly, I get a point in Siege Commander for that extra damage burst against turrets. You may ask why I don't get a point in Demolitionist. It's the offense tree as well. It's because you're going to do huge damage to towers already with your Q, and 10 damage won't really make much of a difference. Also, you can always build your mastery page basically any way you want. Explore a little, see what fits best for you. Another way to build is 9-21-0, just for the extra defense in case you're not yet comfortable at the pace that you're going on with Nasus. Going over Nasus as a character, Nasus is a tanky snowballing DPS nuke, which means the more you farm his Q, the more substantially stronger he will get, making him a huge threat mid to late game. This will also make your opponents make a choice, whether to focus you or your AD carry, making it a win-win situation for your team. Now going over Nasus' skills, I'm getting all the damage and scaling stats from League of Legends website, so if you need a physical reference for this, it will be down in the description below. Starting off with his Q Siphoning Strike, Nasus will empower his next basic attack to deal per level of Q 30, 50, 70, 90, and 110, plus 100% physical scaling. Siphoning Strike permanently gains 3 damage every time you kill an enemy unit, and this is what you will be working all game to farm up so you can deal that huge amount of damage later on in the game. Hopping on over to Wither, Nasus slows target champion over 5 seconds, initially slowing their movement and attack speed by 35% and increasing it by level 47, 59, 71, 83, and 95% over the duration. Getting your point at level 2 on Wither will greatly help out with ganks early game, whether it's for you or against you. For Spirit Fire, Nasus unleashes a Spirit Flame at target location, dealing an initial 55, 95, 135, 175, and 215 magic damage with 0.6 scaling for 5 seconds. Enemies in the area have their armor reduced by 20, 25, 30, 35, and 40 per level and are dealt 11, 19, 27, 35, 43 magic damage per second with 0.12 scaling. Now, Spirit Fire is also a reason why I don't use Armor Pen Quints. Spirit Fire at level 1 reduces enemy armor by 20. That is 10 more than the 3 Quints initially give you. Beware that Spirit Fire can reduce a target's armor below base amount, which is 0. This is calculated before flat armor penetration, so bringing a champion's armor below 0 will not let armor pen do any more damage than it already does. Also, getting Spirit Fire at level 4 allows you to do extra damage when you actually start doing damage. The effect of Spirit Fire also lasts 1 second after they leave the circle, so keep that in mind when you're counter harassing and want that last Q hit before they run away. Last but not least, Nasus' ultimate, Fury of the Sands. Once activated, Nasus will become empowered in a sandstorm for 15 seconds, gaining 300, 450, 600 health for every corresponding level. Over the duration of the storm, he deals 3, 4, 5 of nearby enemies' maximum health each second, with a 240 damage max per second as magic damage. Now that has a 0.01 magic scaling, which is horrible, so getting AP on Nasus is pretty much obsolete. There's no reason to. The damage that you do converts it to bonus attack damage. So basically, you would activate this as an initiation when team happens, and while dealing damage and having extra survivability during the team fight, you will also gain huge amounts of damage. So knowing when to activate your ultimate will be key. Now on the laning phase. I'll start off by giving you my recommended build to start off with until you feel more comfortable exploring and doing your own thing. Or if you'd like to build, you can keep using it, and more power to you. In this part I will go over what items to get when, and easy tips to help you stay in lane to farm your Q. If you need a physical reference for the items as well, that will be also down in the description. I only have 4 recommended items, which will be the base of the build. Starting off with Ninja Tabby or Merc Treads, depending on your lane, or enemy CC, AD, or AP. Trinity Force for the damage proc with your Q, and for the other perks it gives you. Frozen Heart for the cooldown reduction, armor, and its unique aura passive. Lastly, Force of Nature for a big boost in magic resist, and for its life regen passive. Of course, Frozen Heart and Force of Nature can be switched around depending on the enemy team and how AP or AD heavy they are. Now, the last 2 items are up to you to decide, because giving you a full build without knowing what kind of team you're facing would be dumb on my part. So build to the enemy team, and your chances of winning will go up. Going over the starting items, you're going to want to grab Boots of Speed and 3 health pots. In my opinion, there's no exception to this. This will help you have that extra lane sustainability if your lifesteal doesn't quite cut it, and will also give you that ability to go in and out combat while you're farming your Q, and reduce the amount of harass that you take, and if necessary, get away from a gank. Now, standing in enemy minions while trying to farm your Q and not moving around will leave you prone to enemy harass, and or being zoned, which is never good. If the opponent realizes that you are farming your Q with no one to stop you, he is going to be inclined to start zoning you away and start harassing you more and keeping you away from your minions. When you first teleport back, you should have around 900 gold or more. Now, you'll either want to get a Philosopher's Stone or finish your boots depending on how aggressive your lane opponent is. Get Ninja Tabby if you're getting harassed more than you can take, get Merc Treads if you're getting ganked a lot or your opponent is AP, or get a Philo Stone if you're happily farming and need the extra mana and health regen. Also, this should leave you with enough money to buy a ward. Always buy a ward. Even if you aren't pushing the lane, I cannot stress that enough, they will save your life. Now for the second time you back, you should either get a Philo Stone, or if you haven't already, or get a Sheen. I will talk more about the Sheen in a little bit, but this item will be the main damage item for counter harass. It's going to scare your opponent and give you more room to farm your Q. Now, depending on how the game is going, this should be your 3rd teleport back or the laning phase is over. This is the point where you should be able to finish Trinity Force or buy a defensive item if you need it. Finishing Trinity Force right away will not always be beneficial to you. So again, I suggest that you build to how the enemy team is doing, whether that's buying a Glacial Shroud or a Negatron Cloak, or if you have that kill and creep advantage, then finishing Trinity Force would probably be the best option. Going on from there, you should be pretty self-explanatory. Keep building against the team and finish your core build while you keep farming your Q. Now I'll go into talk about laning phase in itself, and how to make lane presence with Nasus. Nasus is all about laning phase. If you don't have a good laning phase and you don't have that Q farm, you're most likely not going to be able to do much for the rest of the game. So this part is here to help you, to give you the tips that you need to help you make that lane presence, so instances like that don't happen. With the boots you buy first, like I said earlier, will help you get in and out to get those last hits with your Q, making you take less overall harass. Now, depending on what champion you're facing, you should use the brush to help minimize the harass. This will also help you zone the enemy away from you more so you have room to run in and out to get the last hits. If you don't have bush control, running in and out to get the last hits will still apply to you. Just run in and last hit, run back behind melee minions or caster minions that keep that range from the enemy. Now, for lane presence, you're going to have to take a more aggressive stance and not be so scared of your opponent. Remember, you have 23% lifesteal, so small poking damage shouldn't mean that much to you. Still, try to avoid missile shots and kite around the enemy abilities as best you can. Making lane presence with Nasus does not require you to harass as much as other champions. Use this to your advantage to save mana for your Q for farming. Only harass when an enemy is on top of you and harassing you at the same time. If you are out damaging and out healing your opponent, they will be scared of you and let you sip your cocktail as you free farm. That's basically how it works. And that's the essence of lane presence. Now, you won't start making lane presence until about level 4 or 6. At levels 1 to 3, just farm your Q. Don't even bother with counter harassing if you don't need to. It's a waste of mana and you won't get the damage you need fast enough. Laning presence is also determined by the damage you can deal and what damage your opponent can deal. Some champions you won't even be able to make presence against, and an example of that is Singed or Moored. To help counteract this, ask your jungler for a gank or two to help you get back and push your lane, get a kill and assist, get that gold level back up to help you make that lane presence. Now, when Nasus makes most of his lane presence, it's when he has Sheen, which will play a huge role in making lane presence. Whether it's from getting all that lifesteal, etc., etc. Now, running Ignite will also work well. It's what I usually run, and it works quite well. Always remember before you teleport back to base to push your lane as far as possible, so you have time to buy and run back to your lane so your turret doesn't take any damage. If you cannot do this, just ask your jungler for some help, he'll hold the lane until you get back. If your top is MIA and there's a 4v4 bot, it would be best to continue pushing top lane until you get the turret. You probably wouldn't make it there in time to help your team anyways, making the trip pointless. Even if top isn't MIA, pushing them as hard as you can so you can get the turret will help you equalize the gold loss, if there is any, from losing bot tower or an ally dying. Of course, if your team did lose the team fight on turret somehow, that's when you know to teleport back to base and help them out, because losing an inner turret will be worse off for your team than losing your top turret or having your top turret take damage. Keep in mind that your team is more important than your farm. If your team needs help mid and the first tower top is gone, or even if it's not, you should go help them. That's where you should draw the line on your farming. It's never worth losing a potential 5v5 fight to just get farm. When you start to get the mid game where roaming starts to happen and laning phase is at its end, there isn't really anything other to do than wait for the other team to make a mistake. You can go clear jungles or split push lanes, but remember to ask your jungler if it's still early in the game if you can take a few camps from the jungle, because if your jungle is already behind for some reason, making him more behind will not benefit you or your team. This will allow you to keep your Q farm up during the mid game so you can have that damage late game if needed. When team fighting with Nasus, it should be self-explanatory. Wither the enemy AD carry and watch your team just melt him away. Then ult and Q everyone around you. That should be the basis of every single team fight you have. If you don't ult the AD carry first, you're most likely just going to lose the fight, and it's probably going to go south from there. Now, a quick review of everything I talked about. You're always going to want to be farming your Q constantly, and remember, you don't need to take harass unless you are getting harassed yourself. And if you end up being zoned, whether it's from a duo lane or you're just getting countered too hard, start building Aegis and Randuins along with your core build afterwards to help your team, so you're not useless at endgame. If you end up getting pushed onto a turret or zoned, remember to ask for a gank to start making that lane presence again. And also remember, you don't need to be scared if you already have that presence. Just be cautious of pushing too far so you don't get ganked, and look for signs of those ganks. Don't prone yourself to harass you don't need to be taking either. Remember to stay behind caster or melee minions while waiting for your cooldown on Slicing Strike. Lastly, grow a pair. Kite with Wither and through minions if needed. You will always outdamage an auto-attacking AD carry such as Tryndamere for 5 seconds if you have a Wither on them. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I really hope this will help a lot of you. I also want to thank you guys for the feedback that you gave me so I can make this video 10 times better than the last one. If you're wondering what Thunder Gaming League is, I will post the website down below so you can take a look at it for yourself. Basically, they're giving me this opportunity to help you guys, the League of Legends community, by giving you tutorial videos once to twice a week. And again, I hope this version was clear and easier to understand than the last one I did. If you liked the video, tap the thumbs up button down below, favorite it for future reference, and if you want to help me or the Thunder Gaming League out, hit that share button. This has been Chords of Thought. I'll see you guys next week with another tutorial.